For me, this referendum was a massive, peaceful revolution by consent of historic proportions. This bill, at last, endorses that revolution. From the 17th century, right the way through our history, through the Corn Laws, through the Parliamentary Reform Act, which gave the vote to the working class, the suffragettes, who got the vote in 1928, and then again in the period of appeasement, these have all been great benchmarks of British history, and they have all ultimately been determined by the decisions that have been taken in this House, and if I may be permitted to say so, by backbenchers. That is where the decisions have so often been taken. The fact is that the fundamental question on which we have fought not only this referendum but all the battles back into the 1980s has been who governs this country. This bill answers that question. Now, I would like to simply say with respect to the bill itself that if one was to look at the Supreme Court decision, and I don't want to spend time on this, but just to make the point that it is quite clear from the manner in which that Supreme Court ruling was given that, and I think the Shadow Minister for Brexit made the same point, this is not about timing, it is not about method, it is not about our relationship with the European Union, it is not about the terms of withdrawal. That is all set out in paras 2 and 3 of the judgment itself. It goes on to say at para 122 that the freedom to make these decisions lies exclusively with Parliament, and that is where we are now embarking on yet another journey. I have to say with respect to the referendum that back in 1990 I formed a view, and it was this. Looking at the House of Commons as a whole, looking at the front bench of the Labour Party and the front bench of the Conservative Party, I came to the conclusion that nothing was going to break the collusion between those two front benches on the European issue or on the question of sovereignty. So there had to be a strategic decision, so I set up the Maastricht referendum campaign. We have now, after many, many years, I believe largely on account of the efforts made, and I want to pay tribute to all my honourable friends on this side of the House, and I use the same expression with respect to those on the other side of the House who have fought the same battle in the same way. People such as Peter Shaw, Tony Benn, and others, member for Vauxhall, the member for Luton, Bob Cryer, the member for Luton North, and so on and so forth. This has been a huge battle, and I don't disrespect the government for the decisions that they've taken during this period of time on either side of the House, because they've been forming judgments which, although they fell short of what we needed in this country, what I do say is that we had, in this democratic cockpit, to fight our battles, to stand up for our own constituents, to stand up, as the Honourable Member for Rushcliffe said, for what we believe in. Conscience, decisions, principles, conviction, that is what has to drive our decision-making. So I would just one moment, if I may, with respect to the honourable gentleman, who I will give way to in a moment, Remoaners who vote against this bill, such as they are, just simply do not get the scale of what this revolution involves. And I would simply say that they respect it and accept it, but they do not. I will give way to the honourable gentleman.
Would accept there's been a vote to leave the EU, but there hasn't been a vote on the terms of withdrawal from the EU, and as soon as Article 50 is triggered, those terms of withdrawal will be decided by the EU 27, not in here. What sort of democracy is that?
Well, one of my main objections from the beginning has been that decisions have so often been taken, and as Chairman of the European Scrutiny Committee on which he sits, he knows perfectly well that I have complained vigorously forever about the fact that decisions are taken behind closed doors within the EU. It's not our sovereignty, it's theirs. Their sovereignty has been imposed on us. That's why I objected to it, and that's why we're standing here today. I simply want to conclude by saying this. We fought for a referendum in Maastricht, and later I will certainly give way to my honourable friend.
I wanted to say, before my honourable friend gave way, that Eurosceptics in this House owe a great debt of gratitude to the honourable gentleman for Stone, who has been our leader in this issue over so many decades.
I'm very touched by that, if I may say so, to my good friend. But I would simply finish by saying this. We fought for a referendum in Maastricht and afterwards, and for unshackling the United Kingdom from an increasingly undemocratic European government. Those who vote in practice against this bill are voting against the outcome of that referendum, and my right honourable friend who opened is absolutely right. We must trust the people. What they would be doing would be voting against the people and their vote as expressed in that referendum. And the House of Lords, if I may touch on that, if they were to do the same, they would be committing political suicide if they were to attempt to stand in the way of the vote of the British people.
Absolutely. Well,
this Westminster Parliament is now the focus where the instructions of the British people have to be carried out. That is what we will do.
Absolutely.
And if I may say once again, those famous words of William Pitt in the Guildhall speech in 1805, England has saved herself by her exertions and will, I trust, save Europe and the United Kingdom by her example.
We will make America great again.